Hello. So I'm going to start out with this forum by answering the question, what is it like to be in my own skin? What are some of my experiences with that? Well, to be quite honest, answering the question, what is it like to be living in the skin of someone who is white? Um, I had to think about that, and I think I still am thinking about that. And the reason why I have to think about that is because I don't put my skin color in my identity on a day-to-day basis, purely because I don't struggle with it. And I know we can see most of the time the things people struggle with are often associated with their identities. So I'm sure someone who's been oppressed because of their race might identify more with that, or someone of their sexuality who's been struggled or oppressed for that would identify more with that because that's something they're opposing, but yet fighting for saying like, hey, this is me. And that's not something I've really had to go through being a white person. The one quote that I could think of is ignorance is bliss, because there's a lot that like I don't have to face or question or defend myself when it comes to being white, because frankly I'm privileged and there's a lot of things I don't have to think about societally on a day-to-day basis, which I am very grateful for, and I'd like to think I'm more aware of. Um, but like I said before, it's something I generally don't have to think about. Um, so being white, I know statistically that I'm less likely to endure poverty and hardships. But truth be told, I think life is full of hardships. And not to say that like those statistics aren't true, but I'm wanting for myself. I don't like speaking in generality for my race, but like for myself, like I have been through poverty with my mom, and my parents are divorced, and my dad is very well off, thankfully, and he's the one who set me up for success. But if it was just me and my mom, like we had to go to the food pantry and we had to get food stamps, and she wanted to commit suicide at many points. Like there was a lot of really bad hardships. And I don't, in that case, like it wasn't limited to race. Like just because we were white didn't stop that. But I do understand that you're more prone if you are a minority, just because of like the way society treats you, and whether that's getting a job or the school system and like area zoning, and like there's just so much more to it. Um, yeah, so something that I wish people would not assume. I wish people wouldn't assume that I take things for granted. I feel like maybe, I don't know. I don't know who would assume that, but I think that's something that I wish, because I think being a little more educated, I am very, very, very grateful in the position that I'm in, because I have an understanding of what I can do with my privilege, and ultimately, like, I understand my privilege enough to know that, like, I want to do the best for others that I can do with it, if that makes sense. I don't want people to assume that I just like any other race, or that I'm afraid of any other race, or I'm uncomfortable with any other race because I'm not like them. Once again, I don't know if that's an assumption people have or not, but I think that's something that's been projected to me based off just like a very like agriculturally set white people group that I grew up with in my small town. Um, Basically, I don't think there's a lot of assumptions that can be made because of my position and my race. I think it'd be very different for a completely different ethnicity and culture. Cultural strengths, I think we have the power, or not the power, being white, I think there's more authority and there was more privilege to our race, meaning, I mean, just from history, and lawmaking and politics, but meaning we can make a say, and ultimately like we have a stronger stance and the ability to be an advocate, for people less privileged, whether that's race or like socioeconomic status or really anything. Ultimately, like coming into college and realizing like white comes with having privilege. It also comes with like you have the responsibility to care for your neighbor, meaning you should be the one stepping up for your neighbor who can't always step up for themselves or talk for themselves. There's definitely a fight for equality, but there's not a fight for equity. So the strength that I think that I have is that my voice, unfortunately, is heard more than someone else's. And that's not how it should be. But yeah, and that's my take on what my life is in a day of a person who's white. I'm not saying that I'm not guilty that I'm white, but I'm going to do what I can with what I have. That is my ultimate life goal.